Hi, this is Jason Rivas with your HR update. As the head of human resources for CharTec and our master MSP, Arc Technology, I'm getting a lot of questions that are very topical according to the time we live in right now. So let's dive into this. One big question I'm getting is, do I lay off or do I furlough? What is the difference? And so we're going to talk about that. Let's start with furlough. Now, before I jump into this, let me be very clear. You need to seek the counsel of your labor attorneys that are in your communities, helping to defend and protect your business interest. I'm coming from an HR perspective, but your legal counsel is going to come from a perspective of what's best for you, what's best for your state, and how your locality apportions definitions for these two things. So when it comes to furlough, furlough is defined as a temporary action. Now the thing about a furlough is that it gives the benefit for the employer to make a set of judgments. We can identify how certain things like cash flow, certain things like client demand, business demand are all impacting how the business operates. It may be one of those things or all of those things, but as a furlough, you get the benefit as an employer to decide, okay, is this right for me? Now, an employee will be essentially temporarily laid off, and the intention is that we hope to restore them to their position. So during this time frame, it is imperative to tell the employee that we intend to restore you. Now this time period, what most companies do is they start for a furlough period of about 4 weeks. And if you have to extend a furlough, it's got to be done in writing, it's got to be done by a certain time frame. But you can also rest upon the benefit of saying we have a certain measure of time to look into this to decide what strategy we employ next. If at the end of the furlough period you're ready to bring them back, you go through the process of notifying your team members, they come back on the job, and what they're going to notice is this. A furlough allows for employees to retain seniority. A furlough allows for an employee to still maintain their position. They just have no workable hours. A furlough allows for an employee to know that, okay, I'm simply taking some unpaid time off. But the neat part about this is, if there were a neat part about this subject, is that a furlough allows for an employee to decide how they want their paid time off or their vacation paid out. They can either choose to leave it with the employer and hold on to it for the furlough period, or they can request to have the paid time off and that vacation time paid out upon that initiation. With this, it allows them to understand how they can make their needs met. Now, depending on how your state or locality apportions this, they may be eligible for unemployment benefit. If that's a possibility, your HR professional will provide them information on how to get that information, how to make those claims, and how to get the process started. And for HR professionals watching this, ensure that you're monitoring your mail and your electronic communication, because nowadays, with how things are working, a lot of the communication may become digital where it used to have been sent in the mail or vice versa. And timeliness is everything. So make sure you're watching at this. The other thing about this is that a furlough is definitively defined as your job simply hitting pause. See, a termination is hitting a stop. And a furlough simply hits pause, meaning we're still in the same frame, we're still doing what we're doing. The difference is you're not progressing forward, you're simply staying still. And the moment we restore you to your position, we hit play again. But the thing about a furlough is it allows us to understand that the business has a certain determined amount of time to figure out what's best and to figure out how to take the next steps. Now, in the event you have to go through this, it's imperative that you're making furlough decisions based upon numerous factors. But the factors not to think about are a person's gender, a person's marital status, a person's family status, a person's challenges when it came to being on the job. You don't want to furlough somebody who's been in a position of having lack of performance because they may have less seniority, more seniority as somebody else. Your decisions need to be meted upon very concrete information. Time on the job, contribution, customer satisfaction. And one thing I can tell you is your HR attorney, your labor attorney is going to help walk you through the parameters on how to make these judgments. Hit them up because every locality is different. What might work in California may be completely different in Michigan or completely different in Florida or New York. So make sure you're hitting up your HR attorney. Now, a furlough is really just that simple. Now, the thing to think about this is it is also going to be a serious conversation. Because for all practical purposes, people are not going to be showing up for work after a furlough is initiated. So they're going to feel the separation. They're going to feel the seriousness of being essentially let go. So it's imperative to make sure that your communication is consistent for every person you're going to be engaging with. So documentation on your conversations is absolutely crucial to hedge against potential suits that may come out of this. Now, one thing I also want to give you here is it is a distinct possibility that some person may feel slighted by this. You can't control that. We can do our best, but sometimes with the best efforts, we still have somebody who may not be feeling great because of this. And if they choose to litigate, we can't keep them from doing that. So your documentation, your paperwork, but also how you made these judgments has to be documented in a way where you would be able to defend these in a court of law. Now, let's go to a layoff. A layoff is much more definitive. Where a furlough is temporary, a layoff is a little more permanent. And what this does is it's a definitive separation from payroll. You're no longer an employee. You take all of your vacation or your PTO when you go through your layoff. And the thing about this is that under furlough, you can't hire a person's position back. You can't put somebody else in that person's role. Under a layoff, you can, but it has to be after a certain determined amount of time. You have to meet certain criteria as an employer. If you don't do these things, you're literally walking outside the confines of safety when it comes to how the law defines these things. You're going to be paying your lawyer a bunch of money in 2021. So think about these things. A furlough, although it does sound a little more friendly, it does have some similar tenses as it does for a layoff. It's a temporary situation. A furlough is defined as something that we hope to restore you to your position after some things are figured out. A layoff is, we don't see a light at the end of the tunnel right now, but if we call you back, we'd like to do that. And employers in this situation need to make sure you're counseling with your HR attorney, with your labor attorneys. We can give you strong information. We can give you forms and processes through CORE, but the thing that will never be replaced is great guidance and counsel from your attorneys. This has been your HR Update, and we'll see you next time.